line cabinet nominees at Commerce and Justice. However, all women from Senator Obama's transition teams are considered candidates for positions in the Obama administration, as are many women who helped in the campaign. Both presidents, Bill Clinton and George W. Bush, named more women and minorities to leadership positions than past presidents. So late in the week, Congresswoman Norton, we heard Senator Clinton is a possibility as Secretary of State, but will the Obama cabinet be more or less gender diverse than prior presidents' cabinets?
Bonnie, with expectations raised the way they are for Barack Obama, I don't expect women to be left off the list.
Look, I think what matters much more is how prepared they are, what their background and experience is. I am much more concerned about that than how many women we end up with the cabinet or what somebody's skin color is.
I don't think the Obama administration wants to be seen as going backwards, so it's going to be at least as diverse as prior administrations, and I think they're going to want to set the bar higher.
I agree, and I think that the women's vote was very critical in this election. I think that they're very cognizant that they need to have qualified, I agree, Genevieve, top women, and I think they'll have them.
When you as former EEOC chair know that in a lawsuit, the way you prove bias is by data and statistics and numbers, because rarely is it that a boss will come out and say, I'm firing you because you're Hispanic or I'm firing you because you're a woman. So you have to show what percentage of the staff is made up of what diversity. Do you expect, I mean, both Clinton and Bush even more so, I think 6 or 7 women in his cabinet during his second administration. Do you expect President-elect Obama to come anywhere near that?
Over time, it didn't begin that way, but over time he certainly did, and over time I don't even consider that an extraordinary number. And I certainly expect Barack Obama to come that way for this reason. The pool is thick. The pool is large.
But why such a small portion of the candidates, at least the ones that are being leaked so far, being women? It's tiny. It's less than 25%.
Those are media lists. People are leaking their own names. These names don't even come from Barack Obama. These come from who people are throwing out there themselves. I even think Hillary Clinton's name may be one of those.
No, I think that's a very good point. I mean, these are not official lists. We don't know yet what it's going to be. And you're right. Look, I mean, increasingly, it shouldn't even be a surprise that you have more women or more minorities in a cabinet, because there are more of those folks in the public sector and in the public square. And so, I mean, it would be surprising if he didn't have more in some ways. But I don't think any candidate or any president-elect should be given, you've got to do one more than the last guy did. I just don't think that's fair. We should be asking him to appoint the most qualified people possible. And frankly, now there's a good pool of women out there to do that.
But you know, there was an article in Politico.com this week saying because he broke such barriers as being the first African-American elected president of this nation, that there's less pressure on him to be diverse. And they had very prominent African-American politicians and think tank people saying, yes, he doesn't have to prove anything. But the fact is, doesn't he have to pay back the people who supported him in this election?
Look, you pay back by being a good president and coming to office.
Oh, come on, Genevieve.
Look, are there
is that ever? No, let me ask you: has American politics ever worked that way, that you didn't owe the people who elected you something?
You might owe them. You owe them to do what you said you were going to do. But I don't think he should come and say, well, let's see, I had this percentage of women vote for me, so I'm going to have that percentage represented in my cabinet. I don't think it should work that way. And at the end of the day, Barack Obama, I think, would want to be known as being a good president, not even being known as the first black president.
And if it doesn't work that way, let's say that memo was correct, and let's say Senator Clinton is not offered Secretary of State or some other high-profile position, or she doesn't take it, what does that say to women voters who supported Senator Obama?
I think it's a huge problem. It's not about a checklist of who you're paying back, but, you know, and people who really care about diversity care about the perspectives that come to the table. The first woman that ever joined a cabinet in this country was under FDR. Well, you know what? It's a whole lot later in our history, and we've only had 33 women in our entire country's history in the cabinet level. So guess what? It's time. Millions and millions and millions of women made their voice heard, and they said they want to see more women in government. We saw the enthusiasm, and I do think the Obama administration needs to make clear that they are taking the women's perspective into very serious account.
And Bonnie, they usually get female jobs, for lack of a better, Secretary of Labor, Education, HHS, and I don't mean that as a put down in any way, but Secretary
But it's certainly not the Secretary of
I was
State
just
for
going to
women.
get to that. One of my favorites, Condoleezza Rice. But my point is, I'd like to see a Secretary of Defense that's a female. I'd like to see, not because she's a woman,